If you're like me, you really enjoy buying silver and gold, but you absolutely hate having to pay any sort of sales tax on your precious metals purchases. And in this video, I'm going to share with you how I avoid paying any sort of sales tax on my precious metals. How you doing, everybody? Welcome to Empire Precious Metals. Thank you so much for watching. If you're new to the channel, make sure you blast that subscribe button, get the bell notification clicked. That way you get updated with any new content. This is a topic that comes up all the time. It's taxes. Everybody hates taxes. Nobody wants to pay them. And I actually learned the hard way, especially being a reseller and dealer of bullion. I learned the hard way about my precious metals purchases and all of the money that I essentially pissed away buying silver and gold on taxes that I didn't need to do. So there's a few things, though, that you have to consider when you are buying silver and gold when it relates to any sort of taxes and sales tax on those purchases. There's a lot of states in the country that do not require you to pay any sort of sales tax. And some of those states, though, they have different stipulations, okay? You have to purchase, $1,500 in order to avoid tax on this metal. You have to pay $500 for a particular metal before you avoid having to pay any sort of sales tax on that metal. So there's all different things with different states. So you have to definitely check those laws. But when it comes to the state that I live in, for example, New Jersey, we pay sales tax on all precious metals. It's an absolute crock. It sucks, but we have to do it. That being said, there are some things that I've learned over the years from being a precious metals dealer that I'm going to bestow upon you, and hopefully this is going to help you avoid paying any sort of sales tax. And this could apply to you even if you're in a state that only has to pay some sales tax. This can help you avoid that entirely. Now, obviously, I'm not a financial advisor, and you definitely want to check with your accountant if this is something that you can do, but this has worked for me, and I know this has worked for other people as well. So the first thing you want to do is definitely check with the different retailer that you are purchasing from, whether it's online or even if it's a local coin shop. If it is a state that you are living in that requires sales tax, you can just check online. If you're new at getting into metals, you can call your local coin shop and ask them, hey, do I have to pay sales tax on metals when I buy from you? A lot of times, though, when you're dealing with like a local coin shop, is that they won't necessarily charge you the sales tax, especially if you are paying cash. They must have something worked out with their accountant. But oftentimes, a lot of the local coin shops that I have dealt with, as long as I was paying cash, they did not require me to pay the sales tax, okay? So, hey, listen, I don't ask any questions. It's benefiting me. They're not charging me the sales tax. They're giving me a good price on those precious metals. So I would say the first thing for you to do is definitely work with a local coin shop and also just check with some of the online retailers if your state is a state that charges sales tax. If you can't get around paying sales tax from a local coin shop or from online bullion dealers and your state requires you to pay sales tax on your precious metals, then there's another option for you. Okay, so let's say you live in a state where they charge sales tax. There's no way around this, and you're just going to have to pay sales tax on your precious metals purchases. What you might want to consider doing is forming an LLC, a limited liability company. This is something that I did because I knew I wanted to essentially go into business of buying and selling precious metals legitimately, but there's an actual benefit with an LLC, which I didn't realize until after the fact, which I'm going to talk to you about in just a few moments. And this is where you need to get to in order to avoid those sales taxes on the purchases that you're making. But it's essentially LLCs, limited liability companies, you're going to pay somewhere in the ballpark of around like $250, $300. I used LegalZoom, so that way I didn't have to fumble through any of the forms on the New Jersey Department of Treasury website. So I just called LegalZoom, told them what the name of the business that I wanted. It was available. I paid for it. And then, about 3 weeks later, I was all set to go. You get an EIN number, which is an employer identification number, which is something that you do need for this next step. But again, guys, it is so simple, so cheap. And if you think about it, right, $300, $350 to form an LLC is relatively inexpensive, especially if you're paying an arm and a leg on sales taxes for your precious metals purchases. But now the third step, what you need to do with the LLC is this. What you want to do with that LLC is you fill out reseller certificates with various companies. For example, I have reseller certificates filed with APMEX, JM Bullion, Provident Metals, Bold Precious Metals, Silver Gold Bull, and eBay. And with these reseller certificates, essentially what that's saying is you are going to pay the sales tax at a later date when you actually sell those precious metals to your customers. But when you actually make the purchase, you are not paying the sales tax on those items. I actually learned this the hard way. For the first year that I was purchasing precious metals, I didn't know about reseller certificates until I started talking to various companies about wholesale accounts and resale. And they told me, oh, you just file a reseller certificate with us. It goes on your account, and then you are not paying those taxes, those sales taxes on the precious metals that you buy from us. There's a whole other slew of things that come along with actually selling the precious metals. But again, we are talking about how you can avoid paying the sales tax on precious metals when you are making those purchases. And so if you are not reselling those items, then you should be able to use these reseller certificates. And again, it works with eBay and things like that too, these resale certificates. In fact, all the comic books that you see behind me, I used the resale certificates and was able to circumvent having to pay the sales tax on those items, because essentially those are considered inventory and I can resell those at a later date. But again, that's if you are going to be selling, and then there's a whole other slew of tax implications that is not for this video. But again, this is all just for you to avoid having to pay the sales tax on precious metals. So if you're not living in a state where you do not have to pay sales tax and you actually are paying sales tax on the precious metals, then you want to consider looking into getting an LLC, and then once you have that LLC, filing those resale certificates with a bunch of the different vendors. Anyway, also again, make sure you check with your accountant. Let me know in the comments down below, have you ever done this before? Do any of you do this right now? Have you ever thought of actually starting your own LLC for precious metals? And let me know in the comments down below what your accountant says about this, because I know a whole bunch of other content creators who are also buyers and resellers of precious metals, and they do this and it helps tremendously. So anyway, let me know in the comments down below. Hopefully this helps you guys out.